In today's video, we're talking about how the Steam Deck OLED is out of stock, why it's out of stock, and how long it might be out of stock. After that, we're going to talk about how it looks like Valve is downporting FSR 4 to older generation AMD tech, which basically means they're getting it ready to work on the Steam machine and eventually the Steam Deck. And finally, while Xbox looked like they were content to let other manufacturers make the Xbox handheld, it looks like they might be throwing their hat back in the ring on a first-party device themselves. How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is Deck Ready, my channel all about Steam hardware. I hope you are having a great week playing a ton of video games. I was going back and forth on Neo 3. I was like, man, it doesn't look like it runs all that well on the Steam Deck, but then I saw it's open world like Elden Ring and I decided to buy it. So after I finish editing this video, I'm jumping right into that. Let me know what you're playing down in the comments below. And as usual, I got to give my humble plea to subscribe to the channel, set your notifications to all, follow me on Twitter at deck_ready, and follow my new Instagram at deck.ready. I think that covers just about everything for the intro, so let's get into the first news story here. So while everyone's been laser focused, rightfully so, on the Steam machine, like the price, the release date, the performance specs, everything about the Steam machine, because it's a brand new product that people are genuinely excited for, it slipped a lot of people, myself included, by that the Steam Deck OLED, ever since the Christmas sale, has been going in and out of stock on the website, and now it's just been out of stock for a little over a week. Now, over the past year or so, this has happened a few times, and I haven't really covered it here on the channel because every time I do a video on this topic, the second I set it live, they go in stock and stay in stock, so I'm kind of cursed. So maybe it's a good thing that I'm making this video today. And B, I want people to be happy and excited about SteamOS like I am, so like doing a negative news story, I don't always love jumping on board with that. If you've watched the channel, you know I like to keep things positive. But this time it's a little bit weird because for the first time since the Steam Deck came out, it seems like a lot more people are really excited to get their hands on one, which I know from reading the comments here on this channel, because thankfully every time someone who watches the channel ends up buying a Steam Deck that they've been so excited for, the first thing they do is come and let me know in the comments, and I greatly appreciate that because it makes me feel good. I'm like, yeah, I love the Steam Deck. I want more people to get Steam Decks and join the community and talk about it, so when I see people pick one up, I get excited. So when they can't pick one up and they let me know in the comments, I'm like, crap, because it seems like there's more people than ever that really want to get their hands on a Steam Deck. And this time around, things are a little bit different because before, if this happened, I could just say, oh, the Steam Deck LCD is cheaper. You should pick that up. It's always in stock. You can use the extra money you save on some Steam games or a Steam gift card, get some stuff to play on your Steam Deck when it arrives, because the LCD performs almost identical to the Steam Deck OLED. And while the OLED is nice, I mean, we're getting late in the Steam Deck life cycle. So like if you buy it, you fall in love with it, you use it for a few years, then they announce the Steam Deck 2. I mean, everything's copacetic because it'll be a huge upgrade at launch for everyone. But a few months ago, they completely killed off the Steam Deck LCD. They've ended production on it and it's been out of stock for a little while now, which leads me to believe that they've sold through their stock, and that means it's no longer coming back. Another issue here is that you can't go to another storefront to buy a Steam Deck. If it's out of stock on store.steampowered.com, it's not like you can go to Best Buy or Micro Center and pick one up there, maybe for a little bit of a markup. If it's sold out on Steam, it's completely sold out and you just have to sit there and wait. The other thing I always tell people to do is keep their eye on the refurbished store because it's awesome. I mean, I bought a refurbished Steam Deck OLED, a regular edition, like 512 gig. And if you put a brand new one in front of me and you put my refurbished one in front of me, I would not be able to tell the difference. Like as far as I could tell, taking it out of the box, which, you know, is marked as refurbished, that's really the only way you can tell. They do a really good job with the refurbished models. The problem is those things are never in stock, and when they are, they sell out within a matter of seconds, and that's not hyperbole. As soon as I see a tweet about it, I always send out the link, and then within seconds I get a reply that's like, oh, they're already sold out. So like there's not a lot of options to buy a Steam Deck other than secondhand from Facebook Marketplace, eBay, or somewhere else when these things go out of stock. Now, interestingly, the last time this happened, Valve put out a note. They were like, look, things are weird with the supply chain. We can't source all the parts we need. We will eventually have Steam Decks back in stock. We don't know when. And then like 2 days after they put out that note, they went back in stock and they stayed in stock for a long time. But this time they're being completely silent. So why is this happening? I think it's the exact same situation where, you know, they need SSDs, they need RAM. Those are really expensive right now. They're already on pretty thin margins with the Steam Deck. So instead of overpaying for those parts and potentially having to raise the price of the Steam Deck OLED, they're going to wait till they can source the parts at the correct price to keep the price where it's at. So overall, I think the idea that they have is good. I think they should just say something about it because, as I said, it's been out of stock for over a week now, and there's a lot of people out there who are trying to buy Steam Deck OLEDs, which is a good problem to have. Like, having more people want something than there are available, that's a good problem, but you can't let it go on too long because there are other handhelds out there. The defense Valve has is that, like, the next step up, the Legion Go S, it's like hundreds of dollars more than the Steam Deck OLED, so it's not like an impulse buy situation. But if people are dead set on getting a handheld, there are other options out there. So I think Valve needs to work overtime and get these things back in stock, or put out a tweet or something and let people know what's going on. But yeah, I think this is just going to keep happening for the foreseeable future because of all these AI data centers. And you know, when it comes to these AI data centers, I have a huge chip on my shoulder right now because when it comes to football, I like college football. More mistakes, you know, younger people, it's more interesting for me to watch. I watch the Super Bowl, I enjoy it. I don't care about either team that was in the Super Bowl this year. So like, I was there for the commercials, every other commercial. It was either Ozempic or AI. Ozempic, AI, Ozempic, AI, some weird social change video. And there was like one movie trailer, which to be fair, I did really like. And then there was a really bad Mandalorian trailer, and that was it. The Ozempic ads piss me off because more power to you if you want to use it. Like, I fully support using Ozempic to lose weight. It's really hard to lose weight. And the reason I'm saying that is it's been like 3 years of going to the gym every day and eating better just to lose like 40 pounds and gain some muscle. That's what I went through. And now I get comments all the time that are like, oh, Jimmy Champagne, more like Jimmy Ozempic. So Ozempic, chip on my shoulder about that. AI companies, every other ad, they're chatbots. They all do the exact same thing. I don't need it advertised to me. I see it enough, and it makes me think about how, you know, generating a micro bikini on Sydney Sweeney or Billie Eilish, which is all you see on Twitter now, is the reason that people in my comments are upset that they can't buy a Steam Deck OLED. So yeah, this sucks. It's going to last a little while, and I hope it's resolved soon. I think Valve just needs to say something though. So that's the situation. The Steam Deck OLED is out of stock, but you know, as I mentioned at the beginning of this news story, I'm cursed. So the second I post this video, they're bam, magically going to go back in stock. You're welcome. That was sarcasm. That's a joke. If it doesn't go back in stock, my curse is lifted and I apologize. All right, so that's the negativity out of the way. Let's move on to the second news story here and talk about how it looks like Valve is downporting FSR 4 to older AMD GPUs, which is good for the Steam Machine and the Steam Deck OLED. So at the end of last year, when the news came out that Valve has been funding secretly, kind of, but not really, like if you looked for it, you could have found it. They just didn't announce it. What they had been funding was translation layers, just like Proton for Android. So you could run Android games on PCs like x86 PCs, and of course also run Steam games on ARM chips and run Steam games on Android phones. They had been funding people for like a decade in the background to get those translation layers set up, and everything was coming to fruition at the end of last year. But in all of that news, it kind of slipped by everyone that they'd also been funding a way to downport FSR 4 to older AMD GPUs. The technology is VKD 3D Proton 3. Say that 10 times fast. I'm going to power through because I tried to say it 100 times. And essentially what it is a version of Proton that also includes baked in support for FSR 4. So if you compare all the different upscaling technologies out there like FSR, DLSS, XESS, TSR, lossless scaling, I think the one that people generally regard to be the worst for a long time was FSR, and with good reason. I mean, the Steam Deck originally shipped with FSR 1, and a lot of games were still using it even up until the point that FSR 3 came out. And when you compared it to the version of DLSS that was out at the same time as FSR, it was not good. I mean, it was built to run on any GPU, NVIDIA included, and it had shimmering, it had low resolution edges on characters, hair was a big problem. FSR 2 was a decent upgrade, FSR 3 was a bigger upgrade, but the first one that really felt like it was competitive with all the other different versions of upscaling out there while also providing good performance was FSR 4. So that's why it was a huge bummer to find out that it was basically relegated to RDNA 4 cards. The Steam Deck, which could really benefit from FSR 4, uses an RDNA 2 chip, and the Steam Machine, which is also theoretically going to benefit from FSR 4, uses an RDNA 3 chip. And then out of nowhere, the technology or like the code or whatever leaked for FSR 4, and people immediately got to work downporting it to older generations of AMD chips. So like right now, there is a way with Decky Loader to get FSR 4 injected into any game you want, which is really cool. But while all of that was happening, it looks like at first Valve went to AMD and was like, hey guys, can you downport this to older GPUs? It clearly runs on everything going down to the Steam Deck, so there's really no reason to keep it proprietary to like the 9060 and 9070 XT. AMD seemed like they were kind of on board at first and they were investigating it, but then ultimately, probably because of this AI madness that's going on, they were like, look, we're not going to do it, but if you want to fund it and figure it out, go for it. You've got an AMD chip, CPU and GPU wise in both the Steam Deck and the upcoming Steam Machine, so we can see the benefit in you funding someone to figure out how to downport it officially. And it looks like through this new version of Vulkan Proton, which is that long string of text I said at the beginning of this news story, it's going to be ready to go on Steam Machine at launch. And obviously that's good because, you know, the Steam Machine is PS5 level. Games are all using Unreal Engine 5 now. Unreal Engine 5 doesn't run amazing on anything, let alone PS5 level architecture. So that's been one of the main points of criticism people have been throwing at the Steam Machine. So it's nice to see that Valve is hard at work trying to figure this out, and they're not leaving the Steam Deck by the wayside. So if you're worried about them giving up on the Steam Deck, I don't think that's ever going to happen. And also, if you're worried about the upscaling tech that's included with the Steam Machine being a problem, I don't think it's going to be either. And it looks like from what we've been able to pull out of their documentation and updates surrounding this, it's going to replace the current level of FSR that's included in SteamOS itself, which as far as I know was never upgraded beyond FSR 1.0. So like if a game didn't include FSR and you use the built-in version of it, it just simply doesn't look that good upscaling from like 360p to 800p on the Steam Deck. And when you think about doing the same thing on a 4K TV that might be 50 or 60 inches, it's going to look even worse. And finally, for the quick wrap-up news story, let's talk about the situation with Xbox and handhelds, because, you know, they're kind of switching things up over at Xbox. They're no longer really competing with Sony and Nintendo. In fact, they're putting their games on the Nintendo Switch 2 and the PS5. So as far as the console war goes, that's pretty much over. It's basically Nintendo versus Sony, and even Sony is kind of putting some games over on Nintendo. Nintendo's the one that's just sitting there like, we have hardware, we have games, they are going to remain exclusive on our hardware, which honestly is fine with me. I don't really care. If I want to play a PlayStation game, I'll buy a PS5. If I want to play a Switch 2 game, I'll buy a Switch 2. That just hasn't really happened yet outside of Donkey Kong Bonanza and Ghost of Yotei. So while all of that was happening with the console war situation, Valve obviously has been hard at work on SteamOS, but overall Linux itself has been growing in the background as well, eating away at the complete dominance that Windows has had over the entire industry. So for the next Xbox, of course, Xbox is like, well, we've got Windows right next door in a different building. We should team up with them and make sure that the next Xbox is a Windows PC. So they built the full screen experience. And then when it came to their handheld, they were like, okay, we can either make our own handheld. They started working on it. And then they were like, this isn't the right time. It's not really working out. So they partnered up with Asus to release the Xbox ROG Ally. And I think that thing sold pretty well. Like Asus said it sold above their expectations, which I'm sure were pretty low just based on the overall price. So it seems like things are trending in the right direction for Xbox. And what kind of confirms that things are going in the right direction for them is a new report from Jez Corden that says while they were kind of stepping away from doing their own proprietary handheld, in the future they are totally willing and kind of excited to jump back in that ring and make a handheld of their own. And honestly, you know I'm biased. You know I love the Steam Deck. You know I love Steam hardware, but I like competition as well. I am rooting for the Xbox full screen experience. I think it's awesome that they just did an update that adds in the sound effects from the Xbox Series X, because, you know, the Xbox Series X is over $700 now, and I think it's smarter to buy a PC. So the more they can make that experience out of the box look, feel, and work like an Xbox console, the better of a situation they're going to be when their next generation hardware, desktop and handheld included, eventually release. And if they do a good job, I mean, that gives more incentive for Valve to really buckle down and make SteamOS the best it can possibly be. Anyway, guys, that's all I've got for you in today's video. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching and shape on.